war of tools. So you've got these two totally different approaches. On one hand, there's the British Army. They're backed by this massive industrial might, which means every single soldier gets the same reliable, mass-produced gear. It's all standardized. But then you have the IRA, and their arsenal was just a product of pure necessity. It was a complete mix of whatever could be captured, smuggled in, or even built by hand in a backroom workshop.
Okay, first up, let's look at the Goliath in this story, right? The Empire's standard issue. So what does the arsenal of a global power actually look like? Well, think organized, think professional, and think incredibly well-equipped.
You know, the whole philosophy behind the British arsenal can really be boiled down to one word: standardization. The goal here was absolute uniformity and, crucially, reliability. The idea was that a soldier could be transferred from, say, a post in Delhi all the way to Dublin, pick up any rifle off the rack, and it would work exactly like the one he'd just left behind. No surprises. And the absolute backbone of the British infantry? The Lee Enfield rifle. I mean, this thing was a legend. It was famously accurate. It held 10 rounds, which was a lot for the time, and a well-trained soldier could fire it with just astonishing speed. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of the Empire's industrial and military power all rolled into one.
Now, for officers or anyone else who needed a sidearm, the standard issue was the Webley Revolver. And let me tell you, this was not some small, discreet pistol. This was a big, heavy, robust weapon, and it was designed for one thing: the brutal, up-close and personal reality of trench warfare and close-quarters combat.
And what's so telling is this number right here, .455. That's the caliber of the Webley's bullet. We're talking about a huge, heavy round. The thinking behind it was dead simple. One shot had to be enough to stop an attacker dead in their tracks, period.
And of course, to really control the battlefield, they brought in the heavy hitters. You had the Lewis gun for mobile automatic fire support and the iconic Mills bomb, the standard hand grenade for clearing out enemy positions. See? It was a complete, professional, thought-out system of warfare.
So, okay, that's the professional system. Now, let's switch gears completely and look at the rebels' improvised arsenal. I mean, what does an arsenal even look like when you don't have any factories? How on earth do you arm a rebellion from pretty much scratch?
And wow, this image just illustrates the difference perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you have the professionally manufactured, perfectly segmented Mills bomb, and on the other, a homemade grenade, literally made in a tin can. One is a product of a massive industrial machine, the other is a product of pure ingenuity, and, let's be honest, desperation. When it came to rifles, the insurgents' collection was a real motley crew. There was absolutely no standard issue here. Fighters used whatever they could get their hands on. Maybe it was a German Mauser rifle smuggled in after World War I. Or maybe it was just a simple, single-shot hunting rifle you could find on pretty much any farm.
And their sidearms? Just as eclectic and varied. You might see a famous Mauser C96 pistol, you know, the one with the wooden stock, famous for its long range, right alongside these tiny, easily hidden pocket pistols. The priority here was never uniformity. It was all about two things: availability and concealability.
But here's the thing. A huge part of their arsenal didn't come from any factory at all. It was homemade. We're talking pipe bombs, booby traps, all kinds of devices made for sabotage. See, these weapons weren't designed for fighting big, pitched battles. No way. They were for creating chaos, for generating fear, and for the element of absolute surprise.
So what we have here is this massive, glaring imbalance in technology and resources. But what does that actually mean on the ground? Well, it means the two sides aren't even playing the same game anymore. It fundamentally changes the entire nature of the war itself.
This kind of mismatch is what forces a conflict into what military strategists call asymmetric warfare. It's pretty straightforward, really. The weaker side knows it can't win by playing the stronger side's game, so they have to change the rules. Just look at mobility, for example. The British had these powerful Rolls-Royce armored cars and trucks. And yeah, they were intimidating symbols of power, bristling with machine guns. But they had a huge, critical weakness. They were loud, they were super visible, and they were almost completely stuck on the roads.
And the IRA's counter to that? The humble bicycle. I know, it sounds almost absurd, right? But tactically, it was genius. A whole column of fighters on bikes could move so quickly and so silently across pretty much any terrain, day or night. They could just appear out of nowhere for an ambush, and then vanish long before those noisy armored cars could even get there to respond.
And this quote, man, it just gets to the absolute heart of it. The most powerful weapons of the day, we're talking tanks, airplanes, they were all but useless in this fight.
And why is that? Because they were designed for a totally different kind of war. You just can't bomb an enemy you can't find. And there's no way you can use a tank to chase a guy on a bicycle down a muddy country lane. It just doesn't work.
So at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway here? What's the legacy of all this asymmetry? I mean, why does looking at these old weapons even matter to us today? Well, because the story of these two arsenals shows us something absolutely crucial. It shows that technology, or just as importantly, the lack of it, is what dictates strategy. The IRA simply couldn't fight a conventional war. It wasn't an option. So their makeshift weapons and their bicycles forced them to invent and perfect guerrilla tactics. That imbalance in the tools of war, it defined the entire fight. Which really leaves us with this fascinating and totally timeless question. Does technology create the tactic? Does a new stealth bomber or a drone automatically create new ways of fighting? Or does the tactic demand the technology? Does the need for, say, a silent, low-cost ambush demand a much simpler tool, like a bicycle? It's a puzzle, and it's one that military strategists are still wrestling with in conflicts all over the world today. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.